The prestigious Debate Academy auditorium bustled with energy as students in crisp, custom-tailored uniforms streamed through the gleaming glass doors. The polished marble floors reflected the dazzling chandeliers overhead, casting an air of privilege and tradition across the vast hall. Near the entrance, the janitor worked quietly, pushing his mop back and forth with practiced precision. Tight against her chest, taking a deep breath before stepping inside. Her clothes were plain of faded kurta, scuffed shoes, but her posture was straight. Immediately, conversations around the entrance died down, replaced by curious and mocking stares. Asterisk, is that the janitor's kid? A boy whispered loudly enough for her to hear, sneering as he tugged at his silk tie. A girl beside him stifled a laugh behind her manicured hand. I heard they're letting anyone in these days, she replied, her voice dripping with disdain. Asterisk, Alia's eyes flickered toward them, but she kept walking. She felt the burn of their judgment, every snide look a weight on her shoulders, but she refused to let it bow her. She could see her father glance up briefly from his work, worry and pride warring in his gaze before he quickly looked away to avoid embarrassing her further. Asterisk. Backstage buzzed with activity as students rehearsed their lines in front of tall mirrors framed with glowing bulbs. The air was heavy with hairspray, cologne, and the faint scent of old theater curtains. Voices overlapped, confident, polished, rehearsed, who adjusted their ties and smoothed their designer jackets with casual entitlement. Asterisk, Alia sat alone on a narrow wooden bench, in the corner, clutching her folder so tightly her knuckles turned white. She flipped through her notes, lips moving silently as she recited arguments and counterpoints she'd practiced 100 times before. Her hair was neatly braided, but lacked the glossy shine of the other girl's expensive salon work. Her sandals, worn at the heels, tapped nervously against the floor. Asterisk, across the room, a group of elite students caught sight of her and exchanged knowing smirks. One of them, a tall boy with slicked-back hair and a perfectly tailored navy blazer, nudged his friend before strolling toward her. He moved with the easy arrogance of someone who'd never been told no. Asterisk, he stopped right in front of her, blocking her view of her notes. Well, well, he drawled loudly enough for the others to hear. Hope you brought a mop instead of arguments today. One girl pretended to mime mopping the floor, giggling into her hand. Another boy called out, Careful, she might slip on her own logic. Asterisk, Alia's heart thumped painfully in her chest. She swallowed hard, voice low but clear. I brought facts, she said steadily, her eyes hardening, and that's all I'll need. Asterisk, the laughter faltered for a moment. He blinked, taken aback at her refusal to shrink. The room went oddly silent as her words hung in the air. She held his gaze unflinching, her jaw set. Asterisk, he scoffed eventually, rolling his eyes, trying to reclaim his swagger. Whatever, he muttered dismissively before turning on his heel and rejoining his friends. They whispered, casting glances her way. But their laughter had lost some of its edge. Asterisk, the stage lights flared to life. Rows of students in formal uniforms sat ramrod straight, their school blazers crisp and badges gleaming. Parents and faculty filled the back rows, murmuring with anticipation. At the judges' table, 3 professors arranged their notes, their faces composed but curious. Asterisk, the moderator, a dignified woman in a dark suit, stepped up to the microphone. Her voice rang through the hall with crisp authority. Welcome, everyone. Today's debate topic: does wealth equal intelligence? Each side will have 5 minutes to present their argument. Asterisk, a polite ripple of applause followed. He surveyed the audience with practiced charm, smiling slightly as if already assured of victory. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, it nurtures it. It gives us resources to learn, to innovate, to lead. Without wealth, you lack access, opportunity, and the tools to make intelligent choices. Asterisk, he gestured expansively, citing elite universities' access to mentors, research. The judges nodded thoughtfully. The room grew quiet as the moderator called, now, the opposing speaker, Alia. Her heart pounded so hard she felt it in her ears. She clutched her notes once before forcing her fingers to relax, then walked to the podium with careful, deliberate steps. Every eye in the auditorium was on her. She heard a muffled snort of laughter from the elite students as she passed. Asterisk, she placed her notes on the podium. But when she spoke, her voice was strong, clear, and carried to the back of the hall. Asterisk, wealth doesn't equal intelligence. It equals advantage, she began, pausing just long enough to let it sink in. Asterisk, she glanced at the audience, seeing curious eyes, skeptical eyes, dismissive eyes. She didn't look away. Asterisk, my father cleans this school. He didn't go to an elite university, but he taught me to read before I went to kindergarten. He taught me to think critically. He taught me empathy, resilience, and honesty. None of that came with a price tag. Asterisk, a rustle moved through the audience. She heard the faint clearing of a judge's throat, as though he hadn't expected to be moved. Asterisk, Aaliyah continued, warming to her words. Intelligence is curiosity. It's hunger for understanding. Wealth can buy books, tutors, or seats in classrooms, but it cannot buy the will to learn. Asterisk, she raised her chin. If money guaranteed wisdom, history wouldn't be full of wealthy fools making disastrous decisions. Intelligence requires effort, and effort is free. Asterisk, she stopped, letting the silence hold. Asterisk. Asterisk, the debate continued under the harsh, revealing stage lights. The moderator's voice faded into the background as Aaliyah's opponent scrambled to regain control. He leaned forward at the podium, his face flushed. But without money? You can't! You can't even dream! What's the point of dreaming if you can't make it real? Asterisk, a few scattered claps from his teammates didn't mask the uncertainty in the air. He turned helplessly to his notes, but they suddenly seemed flat and unconvincing. The audience leaned back in their seats, skeptical now. She didn't rush. Her fingers pressed lightly on the wood of the podium. My father dreamed I'd stand here one day, even if he couldn't afford to buy me a seat. Asterisk, a hush fell over the room. That's the cruelest lie money tells us. Look at this hall. Or is it proof of who you let in? Asterisk, a wave of whispers swept through the crowd. A teacher at the back straightened in her chair. She let them feel the sting of the question. Asterisk, she flipped through her notes deliberately, quoting from memory. Plato said, excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. He didn't add, only for the rich. Asterisk, a few students chuckled in surprise. The tension cracked. Asterisk, she pressed on, voice growing stronger with every word. You can lock people out of buildings. You can keep them off your fancy stage. But you can't buy what really matters here. She tapped her temple gently. Or here. Her hand moved over her heart. Asterisk, a ripple of applause began. Small. At first someone whistled. The moderator cleared her throat, trying to keep order, but the energy was shifting. Asterisk, the elite team exchanged worried glances. Their leader's smug confidence had drained away entirely. His teammates whispered frantic ideas, but he shook his head helplessly. Asterisk, one student in the audience, filming on his phone, whispered, "She's killing them!" Asterisk, the crowd was still buzzing as the moderator returned to the stage, her clipboard trembling slightly in her hands, not from nerves but from awe. She cleared her throat, glanced at the judges, then faced the audience. Asterisk, ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice trying to cut through the energy still lingering in the air. After careful consideration by our judges, today's debate winner is Asterisk. She paused, though the answer already seemed obvious. Aaliyah stood off to the side, hands folded tightly in front of her. Face calm, but her eyes glistening with emotion. Asterisk, Aaliyah Malik. Asterisk, the hall erupted. The applause was louder than it had been for any other winner in recent memory. Students, who had ignored her earlier, now turned in their seats to get a better look. A few stood up, clapping harder. Some even whistled. Teachers and faculty exchanged impressed looks. Asterisk,